Hey, welcome on everyone into the weekly preview show here with the Buffalo Bills game. We do these every Thursday here at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. I'm your host, Jason Mattis, as always. Don't forget, you can always check out my great content that I'm writing over at Buffalo Down. There's a lot of writers over there at Buffalo Down. We're turning out articles 24/7, 365 days a year. The whole website is dedicated to your Buffalo Bills. So go ahead and check out that content. I've got an article that comes out every Friday where I look at the over, under, and the point spread into the game, and I analyze trends related to the point spread and to the over, under, and depending on who the opponent is, going back 3, 5, even possibly 10 years back, really analyzing the over, unders, and the spread. So you can look for that article that come out every Friday morning. And then this week, I'll also come out over the next couple of days, have an article that's some bold predictions here for the Bills versus Dolphins game. There's a couple things that I've analyzed here that that I'm going to predict in an article that I think are going to be pretty bold. So you can look for that article. The link to the website is, like I said, in this video description. And depending on when you're watching this video, those articles aren't live yet, but maybe if you're watching the replay, those articles are live. And if so, whenever they do go live, I'll drop the link to those two articles in this video description. But if not, again, you can always go to buffalodown.com for my articles or the other great ones that the writers out there are turning out. Again, this preview shows every Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, we'll do a breakdown and analyze the game that just unfolded a few hours previously and, go in depth. That was a lot of fun this past Sunday, breaking down that Jets game. The Jets didn't put up much of a fight, as I predicted on Thursday's show, but I think it's going to be a little bit different here this week up against the Miami Dolphins. But we'll analyze that on Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. All right, guys, I've got the chat open. You got anything you want to say, go ahead and drop in there. As I move through a couple points here on the pregame show, I'll pop back the chat open, and we'll see what you guys have to say, and we'll shout out any of the great top comments there about this Bills-Dolphins matchup. So let's jump on into it. Let's go to our first point. Before we analyze this game, the nuts and bolts and how I think it's going to unfold on Sunday, I just kind of want to talk about the Bills' dominance over the Dolphins and really under this Sean McDermott era. Look, Sean McDermott is 5-1 against the Miami Dolphins. Josh Allen as a quarterback himself, he's 3-1 against the Miami Dolphins. Last season, Allen, he completed 63% of his passes for 458 yards. He had 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He even chipped in with a rushing touchdown. So a quarterback that is just very comfortable going up against this team and, specifically going up against this defense. And that always breeds confidence into the team. The Buffalo Bills, they rushed for 109 yards and 168 yards rushing last year against the Miami Dolphins. So again, 5-1 under McDermott, 3-1 under Allen. Allen has success. We've seen it here. It's not too surprising, right? Allen is getting better as he's, growing and developing in this quarterback. Those are excellent numbers against the Miami Dolphins. And then he even stepped it up in his first game in year 3, last week, throwing for 72% of his passes. 72% of his passes, that was really good. I understand, the play call was dialed back a little bit. There wasn't really the deep shots that they were going for over and over again last year. Brian Daboll going for more quick passes, getting the ball out of, Josh Allen's hand. But you got to give credit where credit is due. And you complete 72% of your passes as Allen did. That deserves a lot of credit. It's going to be a little bit tougher, though. I mentioned the 5-1 and the 3-1 record there for, McDermott and Allen. A lot of that was against Adam Gase. And, Brian Flores is a much better coach than Adam Gase. We talked about Adam Gase last week, when we were previewing the Jets game. He's just not a very good coach. Flores is better. So I think while the coaching matchup has gotten tougher, going up for the Buffalo Bills here against the Miami Dolphins, they have that confidence that they can lean on, that 5-1, that 3-1 record. And that's, helps these players out, when they go into these divisional matchups. So I look for that. And as, again, it's going to be close. Just look at last year's matchup, when the Dolphins traveled up to Buffalo. The Dolphins were up 14-9 at halftime. Coming out of halftime, they were threatening the Buffalo Bills. They were knocking on the doorstep. They were on the goal line. For whatever reason, Fitzpatrick wants to challenge Tre'Davious White. I'm not sure why he wants to go at, an elite cornerback there in the NFL, but he did that. Tre'Davious White, made the interception of the goal line. If he doesn't make that play, or, if Fitzpatrick, goes somewhere else with the ball and they end up getting 7 points and they're up 21-9 coming out of halftime, watching that game, it looked like the Dolphins were in control of that game mostly up until that point. that game could have gone a lot different without that interception. So even though the Bills have a good, overall dominant record against the Dolphins, this is going to be a tough matchup. And just look no further again to last year's matchup there at New Era Field. Going to be a good one though on Sunday. All right, let's go ahead now. Let's get into this matchup and let me go to the comment section here, see what we got going on here. See what we got. We got Eric saying hi. What up, Eric? Enjoy this pregame show, my man. All right, let's go ahead and analyze the matchup here. Let's look at the Bills offense and then against the Dolphins defense. And I think this is, a huge, mismatch here in terms of the Bills offense and the Dolphins defense. Look at what the Patriots were able to do last year against, or the Patriots were able to do last week against the Dolphins. Cam Newton rushed the ball 15 attempts for 75 yards. Overall, the Patriots had 217 yards, and they averaged 5.2 per rush. That is absolutely outstanding. That's something that the Dolphins will look to accredit, but I think the Bills are going to want to exploit that same weakness. It's only 1 week, but that is a weakness so far in that Dolphins defense. We know Josh Allen can replicate anything Cam Newton can do with his legs. He's probably even a little bit better at, just given his age. He's, his legs are fresher. He's, younger, tougher, than Cam Newton. So I definitely look for Josh Allen to have that same kind of thing. The Bills will use the runs that the Patriots did. They'll use those zone reads and try to suck in some linebackers, and then Josh Allen will pull it and hit the edge, kind of exactly what Cam Newton do. I definitely look for that. Again, I mentioned that the Bills ran for 109 and 168 yards last season against this Dolphins defense. So, after it's on the tape, right? Everything you do is on the tape, and the Bills will definitely see that the Dolphins struggle. 217 yards, that is an extremely, really high number. So I look for the Bills to take advantage of there. Look for a big game here from Singletary and Moss if that's how the Bills want to go for it. And if they do decide to, go run heavy in their game plan here, I think you may even look for Lee Smith. Lee Smith may be active in this game. He was a surprise inactive last week, or at least surprise in just terms of the fact that he was active every game, last season. So to see him inactive last week, was a little bit of a surprise. But if they go run heavy, as I think they might do, and try to exploit that run defense, you may see the Bills swap out Croft for Lee Smith here in that game, just to give them a really better, blocking tight end option. So look for that. The Dolphins, I think the reason why they struggled a little bit in the run defense last week was because no offseason, no preseason games, and they were trying to work in a lot of new defensive players, guys that they had signed in the offseason. You had Kyle Van Noy as a linebacker, and you had Orlando Roberts as a linebacker trying to brought in. They brought in Shaq Lawson. He's playing the outside linebacker in this scheme in the 3-4 system, where in Buffalo he was obviously a defensive end. They kicked him to the outside linebacker position down there in Miami. And they got Emmanuel Ogbah there that they also signed. So those are 4 players that are in the front 7 that you're trying to work into your defense with no offseason, no preseason games. Not a big, surprise that they struggled against the run. But until they get that fix, until they, get some chemistry there on that front 7, teams are going to look to exploit that. And then we know that one of their other offseason additions was Byron Jones. Doesn't really play all that much into the run game, being a cornerback as opposed to a front 7, but they're going to have to get that figured out. And one of those guys, Orlando Roberts, he's in the concussion protocol for the Dolphins. We know how concussion protocols go here in the NFL, so I'm probably not going to be counting on him to be even playing in this game. Concussions, they seem to linger maybe more than a week, so Roberts may even be down. So just to be a big, tall task here for this Dolphins defense to fix that run game and fix it real quick before you see a very similar, what I believe, offensive game plan coming at you based on what the Patriots did and basing on the Buffalo Bills kind of having the same, being able to attack it with the same weapons there in Josh Allen and their explosive running backs that they have in Singletary and Moss. When the Bills are throwing the ball, it's not going to be good for the Miami Dolphins just because they're starting cornerbacks. They're both hobbled so far. You got Howard. He's definitely their top cornerback, Xavier Howard. He's limited by a knee. And then we mentioned Jones, their free agent addition, Byron Jones. He's limited so far with an ankle. So both of these guys are coming in this matchup hobbled, and that is not what you want when you have to go up against Stephon Diggs, an elite wide receiver in this league. I think a top 10 wide receiver. The special thing about Stephon Diggs is Stephon Diggs can beat you at 2 points of the attack. He can beat you at the line with his get off speed and his get off moves. But then also at the top of his route, when he breaks off the top of his route and goes and makes a cut and turn whichever way he needs to go to continue running his route, he'll beat you there. So he has 2 points of attack. He can really beat a cornerback. So if Howard is hobbled by this knee, that is just not going to be good, because I think Stephon Diggs wins the matchup regardless. But again, if you're limited by a knee, Stephon Diggs will just take advantage of that. And then when they're not throwing the ball to Stephon Diggs, you've got John Brown and Cole Beasley. Again, Byron Jones limited with an ankle, having to go up against Brown and Beasley. That's not a good recipe. So the Bills can kind of do whatever they want here. Look, credit to the Buffalo Bills. They did exactly what they wanted to do in the offseason, which is improve that offense. They did that through continuity on the offensive line. They did that by bringing in a premier wide receiver and Stephon Diggs. They drafted Zach Moss out of the third round in the NFL draft there at the running back position. So I think the game plan will be running heavy just because of what the Patriots did. But boy, when they look to go throw the ball, Stephon Diggs and Brown and Beasley should have their way. I mean, just look at it last week against the Jets. And I know the Jets secondary is definitely a lot worse than this Dolphins secondary. I mean, when we broke down that Jets game, we didn't really call out anybody in the secondary that was any good. I give credit to Howard. He is a pretty good cornerback in this NFL. So, but it's just a really good passing offense. Brandon Beane has done a really good job upgrading this offense. So the Bills should really have it pretty easily, I think, most of the way here, whether it's running, passing. I think it'll be a little bit heavier on the pass or a little bit heavier on the running thing, but they should definitely be successful either way they want to attack this Miami Dolphins defense. All right, before we move on to analyzing the Bills defense, Dolphins offense, let's jump in the comments, see what we got. We've got Diane saying, what is your prediction of the spread? We'll get to that later on. We've got the score prediction and if the Bills may or may not cover the spread. So got that coming up here for you shortly, Diane. All right, now let's look at the Bills defense versus the Dolphins offense. Of note here, and it's not like super important or anything because how much turnover there's been, at least on the Bills side. But the Dolphins offensive coordinator is Chan Gailey, former head coach. Chan Gailey is the offensive coordinator in Miami. I think basically what that means is you're going to get a lot of screens. I mean, that's just what he does, and a lot of quick passes. That's a Chan Gailey offenses, quick passes and screens. We've seen over the years under McDermott, the Bills can struggle a little bit defending the screen game. They get a little too sucked in and they get exposed and teams can hit them on the screen. So that is a little bit I would kind of look for an area maybe that the Dolphins can, look to capitalize there against that Bills defense is in the screen game. Again, because we know Chan Gailey definitely loves that. But when we break down this offense versus defense matchup, you have to start with the health of the Buffalo Bills linebackers first and foremost. You've got a lot of injuries left carried over from that Jets game. You got Matt Milano. He hasn't practiced all week. You got Tremaine Edmonds. He has returned to practice. He's been limited. He's been wearing the red non-contact jersey, trying to protect that shoulder leading up to this game. His backup, Terrell Dodson, did return to practice today in full, so that's a good sign. It looks like you practice in full, you're probably going to be playing in the game, so that's definitely a good thing. But also, Delshon Phillips, the fourth linebacker that got injured against the Jets game, he hasn't practiced all week. So you got Milano and Phillips haven't practiced all week. Milano with the hamstring. We've seen what Bills do with hamstring injuries, making Vernon Butler inactive. In week one, they put Josh Norman on IR to start the season. So you've seen just examples of this season, not to mention previous seasons, how Bills protect those soft tissue injuries, and hamstrings, fall into that category. So I'm expecting Milano definitely not to play in this week. So you'll get A.J. Klein to step up into his position. That's a drop-off right there. Look, Milano is a premier linebacker in the NFL in terms of turning and running with tight ends and running with running backs. He does it just as well as any linebacker in the NFL. He can really shut down a tight end. So that's going to be a loss for the Buffalo Bills, and we'll get to it here in a second. But the Dolphins definitely have a tight end where they can look to exploit that weapon or exploit the drop off there and Klein from Milano to Klein there. And as for Edmonds, that's going to be big. We need to see if he's going to play again. He's battling that shoulder. He's been limited. I assume he's going to play. He's been out in practice. He's been limited. He's been doing the individuals. He hasn't done the team drills. If you don't get him, you get Dotson. Again, he's his backup. He is returned to full practice. But the Bills go into this game really injury or, hit hard at the injury position there at the linebacker, they're going to have to make a call up to that practice squad. Andre Smith's going to be one of the guys. He will probably be called up. I mean, let's just say Milano and Phillips do both play in this game, even though they haven't practiced all week. They got to have some coverage there, especially if you're talking about a hamstring injury and if you're going to push it. So I don't expect those two guys to play, but either way, whether they're up or they're down in terms of this game, in terms of playing, the Buffalo Bills will have to call up somebody from that practice squad. So that's going to be interesting. And that's a little bit worrisome there because we know the Bills have struggled under Sean McDermott in terms of giving up rushing yards. They have stretches where their run defense is absolutely leaky and teams can take advantage of it. And if you don't have Milano, Edmonds, Dodson, up to full strength, maybe that's in the area where the Dolphins look to take advantage against this Bills defense, because it's definitely going to be hard for them in the secondary. We'll get to that in a second. But maybe it's the running game where they look to take advantage of it. The Bills on defense, in terms of them attacking, that front seven and the front seven attacking the Dolphins, they have a chance to do it here on that offensive line. The Dolphins have a rookie left tackle in Austin Jackson. He's obviously going to be going up against Jerry Hughes. We thought Jerry Hughes would have a good game last week, going up against a rookie left tackle for the Jets and Becton. In terms of the stat sheet, Jerry Hughes really wasn't there and he didn't have a big game. Maybe he'll have a better game under Austin or against Austin Jackson. He wasn't as high of a draft pick as Becton, so the talent would obviously not be quite as good between Becton and Jackson. So maybe this is a spot where Jerry Hughes can have a nice big game. And also the right guard, Solomon Kendley, he's also a rookie on that line. So maybe this would be a game where Ed Oliver, can take advantage. I really like Ed Oliver. He's explosive. There's a reason he was the 9th overall draft pick. I actually like pressure up the middle as opposed to on the edge. If you can get in the quarterback's face and bring that pressure up directly, a little bit harder to get out of. Obviously, the quarterback has a harder time, seeing down the field at that point. So maybe this could be a game where Oliver up over that, right guard, rookie right guard, maybe he can have some success in his own right. So two rookies though on offensive line, that's not all that great there, going up against at least a talented Buffalo Bills front four. And again, we talked about the linebackers there and how they're a little bit injured. So what about when the Dolphins decide they want to throw the ball? We know their top weapon is obviously wide receiver Devontae Parker, and I probably know that more than anybody because I actually had him on my fantasy team last year, and I rode him all the way to the championship game last year. He was getting me, like 14 to 23 points, 24 points a game. I mean, Devontae Parker, he's a really good number one wide receiver. He's like in that, probably next tier. He's not on Stephon Diggs level by any stretch, but Devontae Parker is, kind of the next level number one. He had some success last season against Tre'Davious White. You're going to get that over the course of 60 minutes, right? But over the course of 60 minutes, definitely Tre'Davious White is definitely going to win that matchup more times than not. But look for Parker to have a little bit of success with Tre'Davious White. The one thing he's going to have going up against them is he himself, he's been limited in practice. He's battling a hamstring injury. If that hamstring injury is bothering him more than maybe what we're led on to believe, leading up to this game, that Tre'Davious White will easily win that matchup. He's going to win the matchup regardless, just because Tre'Davious White is an elite corner. But if Parker's limited in any kind of way due to that hamstring injury, they're not going to get much production out of him. Tre'Davious White will completely neutralize him. So their next best weapon is going to be at that tight end position. It's Mike Gesicki. He's the tight end there for the Miami Dolphins. He's pretty good. I had him actually a couple times last year on my fantasy team, dropped him throughout the season, but he's a really good tight end. And the reason, so you have a good tight end, but then you also don't have Matt Milano. I believe he's not going to be playing in this game, so he's going to be going up against A.J. Klein. So I actually think this could be their best way to attack the Bills in terms of through the air is going to be through Gesicki there, the tight end position of the Miami Dolphins. Tre'Davious White, again, he'll take away Parker. Levi Wallace will take away, the next Dolphins wide receiver. The Dolphins really don't have a lot of great wide receivers other than Parker. So Wallace will be able to do good. Tre'Davious White, elite, shut down Parker. Look out for Mike Gesicki there, especially against A.J. Klein. I think that's going to be the matchup where the Dolphins look to take advantage, possibly in the run game, just due to the health of the Bills' run linebackers. But right there at that tight end position, it's going to be a nice, tough matchup there for the Buffalo Bills. I believe if it's Matt Milano in the game, it's not even a contest. Matt Milano will shut him down. But you've got A.J. Klein. That's going to be a spot that the Bills need to worry about. And also got to keep an eye on Ryan Fitzpatrick here. He threw 3 interceptions last week against the Patriots. Bills fans know how Ryan Fitzpatrick is. I mean, this guy is not scared to, challenge a corner or challenge a safety and just, throw it up there, get it into a tight window. 3 interceptions last week. The Bills, they were able to pick off a pass last week. We also, mentioned here at the top of the show, earlier on about how he challenged Tre'Davious White. For some reason, when they were up 14-9, they're at the goal line threatening, looking like they were going to go up 21-9. So Fitzpatrick, he will give the defense an opportunity to make interceptions. And that's not good, in terms for the Dolphins. Great for the Bills in terms of their defense with White and Hyde and Poyer, and I even like Levi Wallace. So look to see, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to how risky does Patrick want to be. Does he want to challenge these corners, or does he want to maybe go to Chan Gailey, do his offense of the screen game, the quick passing, get it out of my hands into my playmakers, and that kind of scheme that Chan Gailey likes to run. But if he wants to challenge these corners, the Buffalo Bills, they're better. They're better. They're a top tier secondary. I mean, the whole defense is top tier. I mean, they're top 5 defense and have been for several seasons. But it's definitely led by that secondary with Poyer and Hyde, and then obviously Tre'Davious White. So just something to keep an eye there on with Fitzpatrick and see how much of a gunslinger he wants to be on Sunday. All right, last point we want to get to is the old prediction. How's this thing going to unfold? You can probably guess how I think it's going to unfold. I think at the end of the day, the Bills' offense is just going to be too much for the Dolphins to overcome. Even though the Bills have some of these injuries I mentioned on defense, the Dolphins will be able to get some points. I think they'll be able to attack that, linebacker core there. I think Devontae Parker, he will be limited by hamstring, but he'll be able to make a couple plays, which will get the Dolphins in position there for field goals, maybe even a touchdown through Gesicki there, because I think Gesicki is going to catch a touchdown against A.J. Klein in this game. That's how much I like Gesicki and watching him on film, and then just that drop-off between Milano and Klein. But it's going to get back here to this Buffalo Bills offense. Too much of a rushing attack that they exploit. They've seen what the Patriots were just able to do a week ago against that Dolphins, against that Dolphins front seven in terms of not being able to stop the run. And then when they want to throw the ball, they've got Stephon Diggs, Brown, and Beasley. Man, how do you stop that? Again, the Buffalo Bills have succeeded in my mind of improving that offense. They did it in week 1. They dominated those Jets. They got a late touchdown, which skewed the score a little bit, but they dominated the Jets throughout that entire game, really. So the prediction is the spread is 5.5. That's all the spread is. The Buffalo Bills minus 5.5. I got the Buffalo Bills covering minus 5.5. I've actually got the Bills winning this game 30-17 is how I see this one unfolding. Again, Buffalo Bills winning 30-17. They're going to cover that minus 5.5. That's my prediction. As you guys can see, I also give you sports betting advice. So if you are into that, take the Bills to cover minus 5.5. Don't forget, guys, we'll wrap up the post-game show Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We'll analyze this game, break it down, see how it unfolded between the Bills and the Dolphins. And then for Thursday, we'll be back next Thursday to preview next week's game. Thursdays, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Bills preview show. Again, I'm your host, Jason Mattis. Go to buffalodown.com to check out all my articles. Follow me on Twitter. It's @WinningBetsPod. It's @WinningBetsPod. I'll see you guys Sunday at the post-game show at 8:30 p.m. Have a good one. Enjoy the game.